There's principles that you have to adhere to be a successful business or a successful team. And in the end, if you got the right people on board, they're going to embrace it. They're going to own it. It's no longer discipline.
Welcome to the Walk On podcast. This is our latest iteration of the journey of finding one's passion and leading from that place of purpose. We do that through conversations with people living aligned and fulfilling existences. And that's where we are today. We're going to talk to someone who is leading a really fulfilling existence, and I think has a lot of good insights in living with your passion, but also being a good leader. So we're thrilled today to have Coach Mark Taylor. He's the Mason family head Hobart head hockey coach. That's a mouthful. I don't want to embarrass you too much, but I want to share a little bit of background so that folks know who we're talking to. Very excited. You're going to be inducted into the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame this year on July 13th. You're a two-time and current defending Edward Jeremiah Award winner as the CCM AHCA National Coach of the Year. You've won a ton of Conference Coach of the Year titles. You'll have been at Hobart for 25 years. And I just want to tick off a couple of these things, not to embarrass you, but really to talk about the strength of what you've accomplished. Defending back-to-back national championships, 5 straight 20-win seasons, 20 consecutive winning seasons, 9 straight NCAA appearances, 13 overall. You're number 7 among active coaches with wins for Division III. I could go on and on. I think what you'd be most impressed and happy to talk about is that you've mentored 21 of Hobart's All-Americans. In the classroom, your players have 241 conference all-academic team honors. That's extraordinary. 52 AHCA All-American Scholar Awards. So not only are you guys doing it on the ice, Coach Taylor, your guys are doing it in the classroom. So with that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of your career arc that got you to Hobart?
Well, Canton, New York, North Country kid by heart, and upstate New York, and basically had 2 older brothers. Certainly they paved the way for the hockey passion, and found myself in between the pipes with older brothers. They got to find somebody to be the goaltender, and you know what that's like, right?
I do, right?
But quickly realized that's not where I wanted to be. And so youth hockey, then college at Canton College back then. And I'm an old man. So back then used to do the junior college route, then go on to college hockey, and went to Elmira, played for Brian McCutcheon, former Sabres associate head coach, and played for him at Elmira, then coached with him at Cornell. So certainly an important mentor of mine. And then after Elmira, I went over to Sweden for a couple years. And when I got thinking about what am I going to do next, Brian hooked me up with Bill Beanie, who was the coach at Middlebury and another important mentor of mine, and certainly someone that I'm just chasing. He's got more accolades than anybody will catch, but that keeps me right where I should be, my head down and working hard. Trying to keep on to his coattails. But started at Middlebury, then Brown, then Vermont, Cornell, UMass Lowell. And then at that stage, I was looking in the mirror and saying, okay, you've recruited pretty much a guy in every round of the draft, and time to be a head coach and see if you know anything, and stay home a little bit more as a father and a husband. So that's what brought me to Hobart College.
Well, very good. And I should say for our podcast members, if they're not seeing it, I did go to Hobart and played hockey there. So for me, this is a great thrill. And it was a much different program when we were there. 14 wins high in one season was the mark. But we've done an amazing job since coming to Hobart once.
Well, you got to start somewhere. Nobody sees the footers in the ground in a well-built house, but hopefully they're real good footers.
Well, there you go. Well, so let's talk about that. That's quite the career arc. How do you go from, at what point do you know you wanted to coach? Did you know that when you were a player early on? When did that transition from I'm playing in Sweden, now I'm going to figure out what's next? How did coaching come to the fore?
Basically, it was I wasn't thinking of coaching at all. I went to school for criminal law, and I was real close between being a typical senior college graduate, trying to decide, I take this opportunity to go into the FBI, or do I go play in Sweden? And fortunately, the recruiting officer at the time advised me to, go chase it in Sweden and then call him when I got back. But in terms of the coaching, I got injured my second year. It was the first time I really, was given a lot of thought to what am I going to do the rest of my life, so to speak? You come through college and you do all the right things for career services and all that, and that's when Brian McCutcheon said, you know what, you should look into to coaching. I think you'd be good at it. And he was the one that gave me the nudge. And I didn't want to give up the game. I love the game. I
Yeah.
love being
Yeah.
part of the locker room. I really feel my best value is being a team guy. And, I think it is the best part of all of this. Everybody,
Yeah.
you mentioned all the accolades, but if you said, what was the best part of this year with all that, the accolades and the New York State Hall of Fame is certainly very, very humbling. But this past weekend, I'm with a number of my alums at a golf fundraiser, and the fact that my players are great friends for life
Yeah.
and they love their time here. To me, that's it. That's the ultimate
Yeah.
one, because the trophies will get a little dusty and the stats will fade accuracy. But, the fact that my players truly have a great love and appreciation for each other is what I had. And that's always what I keep my eye on, is making sure I'm providing an environment that the players will have that. And I think if I do that, we'll have a good chance of winning.
Yeah, I want to dig into that in a couple minutes, but I think, whether it's on the ice, in the workplace, I think the best performing teams are those that there's trust, there's accountability, and a clear vision and mission of what you're all trying to accomplish.
No question. And you got to have that, it's the loyalty. I mean, we talk about it all the time. There's a award we hand out after every win. It's Loyal Dog. And I remember I was trying to think, maybe it was '09 when we were doing our team covenant. That was one thing that the group said, that, what's going to be the most important ingredient that we can have. And the group came back with loyalty. And, these guys are all great friends, and, we'll go through the wall for each other. But,
Yeah.
there'll be times when things will be tested, and they better be loyal to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to go back to your career and, at what point, right? You sort of say, all right, injury creep in and I got to go, get a real job somewhere, pro hockey's only gone so far. When was that moment where it clicked for you that you're like, you know what, this was the right decision? This was, this is where I'm supposed to be. What was that clicked for you?
It's just right at Middlebury,
Yeah.
and that was, there's two defining moments. I played, and it's going to sound crazy to the listeners about it was Pee Wee hockey, but I played for Arlie Parker, who I really credit, probably the one that really gave me that god awful love for hockey. And he was a monster of a man. Played at St. Lawrence, was All-American there. Played a little bit, I think, in the Leafs organization. So well beyond coaching Pee Wee hockey. But I always said, he made men of boys, and he made, how we went about things as young kids, and professionally, and respect, and all the right things about teamwork. He was instilling it right then, and that's when I fell in love with not just the game of hockey, but the atmosphere of hockey and the culture of hockey, in terms of your teammates and honoring the game. And then at Middlebury, Bill Beanie is the best. He's just a phenomenal coach. I think he's the best coach I've ever been around, and every single coach I've been around has been coach of the year at one level or another. So that's a pretty good statement. But if you look at his resume, he wins at hockey, he wins at women's soccer, he wins at golf. I mean, that's a pretty good cross section of different challenges. And I got with him and said, hey, this is a lot of fun. And didn't make a lot of money that first year. Probably didn't make a lot of money
Yeah.
the next 2 years, but so I knew I loved it. And then I started to have to chase a paycheck so I could afford to do it. And fortunately, I could stay ahead of the loans back then, so I was able to stay in it.
Yeah. You said something that I find really fascinating when I reflect on my career as well. The most transformative figure in athletics for me, and maybe even in my life, was my high school coach, Ray Maluda. He played, from Flin Flon, Manitoba. He played for the Bruins and the Atlanta Flames for a little bit. And what was interesting in what you said, and I think resonated with me too, it was one of the most memorable times and enjoyable times playing a sport, but it was also where he taught it was a business, and it was hard work and two-a-days. And so that discipline, those aren't mutually exclusive, right? It's that discipline, yet there was great freedom and fun. Do you think that rigor gives people the flexibility? What's that connection there? Because since we both clearly call
Well,
upon that.
I spoke at a bank function last summer, and just before going into it, and I'm gonna just try and recollect some of the article, but it was, I believe it was Kansas City. It was Kansas City Chiefs about their training camp, and I've always felt kids are no different. Society's different. The kids are born, and it's the society environment that changes them along the way. But I have a huge privilege every year to read guys' votes for leadership, and it
Mhm.
hasn't changed in 40 years of coaching. They want guys that do all the right things. They want guys that work hard. They want guys that keep guys accountable. They want good character. So these people say kids have changed. Yeah, don't give me that crap. They
Yeah.
either you're letting them, you're changing the environment for them. They haven't changed. They want the same things they wanted in '88. And it was funny because I read that article, and they were interviewing some of the NFL guys that were going to camp. And one of the guys came in, he says, I'm a hot shot college grad. I'm coming into the Chiefs camp, and it's just tough. Like, it's old school. It's, I
Yep.
guess, famous for being a real tough camp. And, he's saying, I don't need to do this. I'm a hot shot college guy. He did it after he did it. He saw the value of it, probably won a Super
Yeah.
Bowl. And then like
Yeah.
a year or two later, and I could be off on the dates, the next guy comes in a hot shot complaining, why are we doing all this? And
Yep.
to me, it was a perfect point of, it hasn't changed. The guys
Yeah.
still want, like you said, you want that discipline. And for me, what I appreciated with Arlie, and it's probably what that you got, where you say it's it's ran like a business. It's just ran right. It's
Yeah.
there's right and wrong, and
Yeah.
there's principles that you have to adhere to be a successful business or a successful team. And in the end, if you got the right people on board, they're going to embrace it. They're going to own it. It's no longer discipline. Like discipline
Yeah.
is something that
Yeah.
sometimes is a toughness. To me, it's like we have standards that we have. Guys own those, and guys
Yeah.
know that they're important. So when you set that environment, it becomes fun because things are being done the right way. Guys are
Yeah.
showing
Yeah.
up and giving. We have a simple phrase: "Give me your full effort every day and do it the right way." And I don't care if you're, that's your job, that's going to class, that's mowing the lawn, or that's playing hockey. You do it
Yeah.
with your best effort, and you do it with the right character.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, you're going to do pretty good.
Well, so that's a perfect segue to the next thing I wanted to get into. So, thinking back to your career arc, right? You come to Hobart after building a lot of, as you said before, the foundation and building it the right way and your coaching experiences. You inherit a team that lost 7 consecutive seasons, right? So you know that coming in. How do you address that first year and lay that next foundation for success? What does that look like?
For one, I had the fortune of coming into Middlebury. That was Bill Beanie's second year, so he was kind of transitioning that program. And then I went to Brown, which was a big transition. I always like to say it was a great year. We won $1.25, which sounds good, but we actually went 1-25. But $1.25 sounds a heck of a lot better. And and it was the value of that year for me as a coach was huge. And like they say, sometimes you're losing seasons, you'll you'll learn the most. And there's a ton of truth to that. You'll certainly learn a lot. So coming in, like for me, I'd done that a few times. So when I came to Hobart, it wasn't inheriting a team. To me, it was, these are my guys. And I chose to come here. I chose them as a team. So it wasn't somebody else's team. I had the privilege, I played with Bill Greer's brother. He was my captain. So I had some allegiance to Coach Greer. He's his older brother, and I played for Pete. Pete was my captain. I got respect for Bill. It's that simple to me in life.
Yeah.
And so, Bill had brought him here, and it was my turn to coach him. And, for me, I've always believed in lead by just doing. And I'm not a slick enough talker to talk my way out of things or talk my way into things. So I'd rather, say less, do more. And, I knew how I was going to go about it. I knew the players wanted to be the best they can be. I don't care if you're Division I, NHL, and I've gotten that from, Joe Nunike would come back to Cornell in the summer, and I remember asking him, thinking, never having been that close to anything like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
what do you
Right.
guys do? And he's like, Tails, a lot of it's the same. It's just a higher level
Yeah.
player. And I think if you trickle down through each level, kids want to be the best they can be no matter what level they're at. And
Yeah.
so taking the program over is just, I remember saying to the guys, our goals aren't going to change. We're going to go after championships. Is it going to be a tough reach this year? Yeah, it is. But you know what? Teams can have injuries. Teams can get sick. Teams can have good teams can have bad culture. So
Yeah.
go after it every single year. And, maybe you get a little farther one year because of someone's undoing.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just brought up something, and I wasn't necessarily thinking of this, but I wanted to ask you about what's the cornerstone of a winning culture. But you just said something that's sort of in the news lately, and I would certainly never ask you to critique another coach. But, Coach Sanders at Colorado football, has said he's had this massive transition every year bringing people in, and we're heading that way, with the transfer portal. And we talked a little bit about that. But he said, culture doesn't matter. I want guys here who are just good and they're the best, and we're going to win that way. It's that argument of which is a better team, something that's cohesive and pulling in the same direction, or just the most talented. And you're going into the Hall of Fame with Mike Ruzioni, and in 1980 that was the deal, right? The coach, the great Herb Brooks, wanted culture and fit versus necessarily talent. So without necessarily critiquing Coach Sanders, what's your take on that? Maybe lead it into your vision of a winning culture.
Yeah, and in my answer, I didn't hear the whole interview with him to
Yeah.
know all the details of it and stuff like that. So I know for me, I'll take a B+ hardworking student over a not hardworking student any day of the week.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll take a king that on the ice, a kid that's the same thing. You know, uh, character's everything. And to
Yeah.
me, the culture is a buzzword. And and that may be where he was kicking that word to the curb a little bit, because people
Yep.
it's a fitting word, and people know what it means, and that's
Yep.
I put a lot of stock in that. Like, if somebody asked me, we're a beautiful campus. I mean, that,
Yeah.
but to the
Yeah.
listeners here that haven't seen it, I mean, just get on Google Earth and you see the lake, and scroll to the west and you see our campus. I've never had a kid in 22 years say, I don't want to come here because of the campus. And,
Right.
I had a senior in September have a commitment to a job at almost 6 figures coming out of college. So we're placing kids,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I know the campus, I know the school, but if a kid, I can look mom and dad in the eye and say, look, your kid's going to have an awesome 4 years. He's going to get well read, well written. You're not going to regret what you spend here, because he's going to get a job that's going to matter for 40 years. But if
Yeah.
you really want to know why you want to come here, it's the culture of our room. I got
Yeah.
good young men. I mean, our graduation this year, pretty much everybody walked across the stage as cum laude or summa cum laude. And it's not from my tutor,
Yeah.
and I can tell you that. And, so that is the most important thing. And I'll say it sometimes, and the recruits will joke, and I say it's as simple as this. Do you want to go to Myrtle Beach on vacation with a bunch of good guys and an old beater Maverick? Or do you want to go with a bunch of jerks in a limousine? And if
Yeah.
you like the limousine and the jerks, go someplace else. We don't want you here.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
for me, I think that character is what I would probably say. I want a room full of real good
Yeah.
character. And
Yep.
hey, they're college kids. They're going to do something stupid, as everybody does. Hopefully not too many of them do it. And
Right.
but like I said, I remember saying it one time. It was during when my mom had Alzheimer's, and I said I could pick any one of these guys out of the room to go pick up my mom and drive her 3 hours down here, and I wouldn't worry an ounce.
Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
me, that's what I want to say about my players. That's what
Yeah.
I want to say about my All-Americans. If I can't say it about my All-Americans, I don't think we win.
Yep.
It's just,
That's
I've seen a lot of
yeah.
great players,
Yeah.
that don't win.
Yep. Yep. So talk to me a little bit, and I know you're very famous for your tools and techniques for building alignment. It starts, you said covenant, and there's some other things you do. How do you build at the start of a season? How do you build that team focus? This is, the mission is obviously now it's a championship or bust, right? And I know it's character and great things in the classroom, but from a playing perspective, that's what you're looking for. So what are some of those things you do at the beginning to align the team around a purpose and a mission?
Well, nowadays kids are, so much, I don't want to say more educated, but like information's right on their fingertips. And some of the stuff that, you know, 20, 30 years ago, you could pull out an article from the hockey news and there's a good chance none of your guys read it,
You're right.
and now they read it before you saw it. And
Yeah.
so I find different ways to say a lot of the same things that need to be said, but coming from a different context. I grew up in a construction family. So one year we used building a house theme. And where, I mentioned it right off the bat about, and I believe that here at Hobart College, that, we don't get to where we are today if things weren't done 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, we did one, that was just an easy example of, we talked about digging the hole. Before you build the house, you got to dig the hole and you got to do the footers, and the footers got to be level. They got to be square, and then so on and so forth. And any contractors out there and anybody that does a house building, if the foundation's all out of whack, the sheetrock guys aren't too happy. And,
Right.
and vice versa. If, the guy putting the roof on does a terrible job, you got leaks on a real nice house. So,
Yeah.
we go through stages like that, and it allows the team, I think, allows them to focus on principles, but have fun focusing on it. And it's not the same tune.
Mhm.
I use other sports. I think it's educational. I try and use other parts of life. This year we were building a totem pole. It was a learning experience for me, learning for the guys. Like, what do we want as the foundation of our totem pole? And each one, as you go up, what that's going to, symbolize that our team will be. And last year we used building a boat, and, and towards the end, and when we hit the NCAAs, I ended up buying some wood, and guys hand carved their own paddles, and,
That's
and then
great.
they ended up getting a tattoo of a paddle, after we won the championship. And,
Yeah.
fun ways to get across a lot of the same message. And that's it. I love coming to the rink every day.
Yeah.
And, it's fun to come to the rink every day. And to me, as I tell recruits, it's going to be competitive, between this guy and that guy. There's not going to be much different.
Yep.
Our team this year was a perfect example of that. I mean, our fourth line to our first line was, it might not be any difference. It might have just moving a few players, but, the
Yeah.
toughest thing to play against us was there was no crack.
Yeah.
Everybody brought it. And even though we're very competitive, we talk about compete. To me, there's working hard and there's competing. And we want to compete. But we also want to have fun competing. If
Yeah.
if your teammate, knocks you on your butt, I see it happen every day in practice where, two best friends, and one will line up the other one pretty good. And, he might have a little bit of bite and be pissed a little bit at the beginning when he's getting up, but then he just smiles, and it keeps
Yeah.
everybody at a certain level.
Yeah. That's great. So I don't want to have you give away trade secrets, but you know, you you're now there is this expectation when you talk about Hobart hockey that you're going to win, that you're going to be successful, and you're back to back national champions. You're going into you'll be finishing a conference, heading a new one. How do you keep a team grounded amid those expectations and your own inside the room and those heavy ones from outside?
You know what? The guys have done a good job with that. We have a saying that, say nothing when you lose and say less when you win. And the guys embrace that. And for me, like you say, you go in, like first when I got the call for the New York State Hall of Fame, I'll be honest with you, I was trying to recognize the voice. I'm thinking, this has got to be one of my
Yes.
buddies jerking my chain. So I didn't say anything to anybody. until I got another call back.
Yeah.
And Rennie, I told him that, and he laughed and he goes, "Well, that makes you even more the right type of person to come into the Hall of Fame." And I was like, for me, it's easy. Like I'm going in with Bill Beanie, and I mean, maybe I can tie one of his skates right now, but I don't think I could tie both of his skates. So it's pretty easy to just stay after. And quite
Yeah.
honestly, Mike, people ask, yeah, maybe we got to this mountaintop or got over the edge because we had been in the NCAA tournament. Now we're going on 9 years in a row. And, I think we should have won in 09. Maybe if I was a better coach in 06, we would have won it. One of the other years when we went to Wisconsin, they had an undefeated season, so you got to give credit to them. But we had our top goalie go down with mono, so he couldn't play. That factored into it, but I still look in the mirror and say, geez, how could I have, if I could turn that time back, what could I have done different? I mentioned a coach had mentioned one time that, coaches, I don't know the name of the game, but remember that doctor set where you take the players and you
Operation.
try and go,
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, you try and go in and every now and then you might hit the sides or whatever. And he says it's, you look at that guy and he looks like a clown, and sometimes you need to, squeeze a guy's nose or pull a guy's ear. And he says, but then you got to be real careful when you go in to fix a part that you don't hit the edges. And for me, it's, I'm looking for a new book right now. I read Mark Messier, No One Wins Alone. If there's fans out there of sports, certainly hockey fans, it's an awesome book in terms of, here's a guy that's done it all. And I have huge respect for him and Edmonton and that team. And so just getting an insight is a privilege. But a lot of his messages are so reaffirming, and some new messages that you get out there of, just like the title of the book, No One Wins Alone. And, and he's very candid on the mistakes he made and looked in the mirror. And I just thought it was a huge book. And we used a lot of that book this year in our quest to do it again.
Yeah, I love that you're making it tangible for them and letting the players buy into something, and in some cases, literally physically holding an oar and really bringing it to life. I also thought it was interesting. You celebrate Messier as a Oiler. I celebrate him as a Ranger, and I'm hoping the Rangers get another cup this year. So we can tell your perspective. But I appreciate your time. This has been a true treat. One last question I wanted to get a sense of, how do you stoke your passion, right? I mean, obviously, you get burned out spending all day at the rink. How do you stoke passion for you out? Are there things you do outside of hockey? How do you keep the gate sharp, so to speak, for you?
I have a lot of hobbies. When I retire, I'm not going to be bored. I can tell you that. I love to hunt, fish. I love to travel. I love to build things with my hands. I got a lot. Like somebody asked me, what would be your bucket list? I said the first bucket list would be knocking off all my other lists. But I remember reading in. I'm trying to remember. I'm drawing a blank here. I'll think of it in a second. There's another book, and it was an interview with the players and Scotty Bowman, former coaches, and Scotty Bowman talked about recharging in the summer. And I think you need to do that. But for me, I think I would have to say, you definitely need downtime and recharge.
Yes.
But, if you catch a 5-pound fish, you want to catch a 6-pound fish,
Right.
So, somebody says, what are you doing next year? We'll go after 3. And why not? I mean, that's no different than we've been saying every year is we're going to go after a championship. And it's not going to be, everybody says you're defending it. And I get why they say that, but we're going to get it. That's what we did this year. It wasn't, we didn't have that trophy in our locker room and we were defending it. We had to go get it. And that's kind of been who we've been for the past 10 years of, hey, I didn't do a ton different, probably made a couple minor moves better than I did 15 years ago in terms of, doing things. But, I always say you got to be good, but there's a lot of good teams. And you got to have, and it's not me saying, it's what I've kind of learning from what other people are doing. It's you got to be talented, you got to be good, but you have to have that certain type of mojo or rhythm or just whatever word you want to use. And then the third piece is being lucky. And,
Yeah.
if you're really good, make sure you're working on making sure your team's got that special stuff. I like the word stuff better than mojo, but, and then the last one is you got to be lucky. I mean, we had a real good team. We had some real good mojo going, and our goalie comes down with mono. That's not
Yeah.
lucky, you know?
Yeah.
So we'll go after it just like we've been every year, and trying to be, our guys said it best. I mean, my players do the goals, if they're not set high enough, I'm certainly going to step in, and I'm not going to let the inmates run the place, but you might, and I shouldn't even say it that way anymore, because, the guys are so good, but, they set the standards, they set the bar. I mean, they set the bar going undefeated this year, and I was like, oof, that's a pretty lofty one, boys. And, right out of the gate, we get, punched in the face, and probably did us as much good as anything.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that inner passion's there, but you do have to recharge, take some time away. And I like that idle time, because it allows you to think. I bark at my guys sometimes of, I think sometimes for kids nowadays, my players or what have you, you and I, had time alone in a car. You maybe didn't have a phone to distract you. Sometimes that idle time of thought, I think, is very healthy.
Yeah, that windshield time, I used to call it when I traveled a bit for work, that, you can either zone out, or you can, gets the wheels turning, just because you got that space and perspective. And that's the last thing I sort of, we were talking of ingredients, as a fan and a Hobart hockey family member, watching this year, and you're coming out of the shoot and big expectations, and you do get punched in the nose and you lose early on. I think lesser teams that don't have that foundation could have been, deflated or imploded, where it's like, wow, we had these massive expectations and now it's gone. And it seems like you were able to get the guys, or they got themselves, which is probably what you'll tell me, but they got themselves back up and just said, all right, there's a long season here. There's an arc here. And this is just one, page in a chapter, one chapter in a story. And let's just get back up and go at it. And I think perspective is really powerful. And that time off is, I think, what you're also talking about. It gives you that perspective to assess and reevaluate.
Yeah. Yeah. That Oswego game, we didn't play Hobart hockey. We didn't, play committed the right way to the defensive side of the puck. We really weren't as tight, as we should have been as a team with each other. And, the expectations and the desires and attitudes and all that were all in the right places, but we weren't us. And that fixed itself real quick, because after the game, I said, well, you guys can, we can try and be something different and be like that if that's the way you want to be, but that's not us. And quite frankly, they're better at that than we are. And we got to be good at what we're good at. And I think that helped us, really cemented. And we never deviated from that. After that Oswego game, we said, okay, we're going to be who we are and how we do things. And, it's, you golf, right? Do you golf?
Not anymore. I hung up the clubs. I wasn't playing enough.
Well, to me, I always say it's like when you're golfing real good, all of a sudden you get up there and you're thinking, oh, I can hit it over the tree in the pond and land on the green, and the next thing you know, you shank it over the trees and into the pond. And you're like, I guess I got to play this a little smarter. So
play within myself.
Yeah, that helped us, and then the loss to Babson helped us a ton. We outshot them, outplayed them. And for whatever reasons, it didn't come our way. And as I told the guys, I got no problems. You outplayed them. No fault to anybody in this room. The hockey gods just didn't look our way today. And get back on the bus, and we never looked back after that one game.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time. This has been great. I could keep drilling you with questions for the next hour. This has been awesome. So appreciate you being on. Can't wait to see what you all do this year inside and outside the classroom. And I'm going to sign off here by telling everyone that this podcast is about people leading with passion and purpose, providing a roadmap for your personal journey. Hear their stories, find your passion, walk on. Coach Taylor, it was a pleasure. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.